It's my privilege to introduce to you James O'Neill, who's a teacher at Piedmont. He's going to talk to you about the difference that you can make. James?
Go get him. Sitting in class, watching those who are of the complexion of the opposite leave, as they again relieve themselves from being in class full of those who are the complexion of me. It wasn't hard to see that the inequality symbols of less than and greater than that I was learning in math not only applied to numbers, they applied to colors. Shades of brown, invisibly crowned with dunce, became fitted to heads that seemed to learn at exponentially slower rates than others. Though we were an integrated school, the gifted segregated themselves through the white flight of Jim Crow's wings, enacting their civil rights of separate but equal PLCs that excluded NAACPs because this was the norm. Until one white lady who taught Algebra 1 in 8th grade gave 2 black boys a math test that went against the pedagogy of low expectations. She saw in us the same desire to learn. It was just wrapped in brown skin that identified as black. She chose to see color because she recognized that everyone that was in her advanced math classes were white. She chose to rescue us from a curriculum that handed out 6 degrees of separation: Southern, poor, black, male, non-gifted, therefore unlikely. She changed my best friend Chester and my life. It wasn't as if I didn't believe I could do it. She believed I could. Her expectations of me tore down walls built by bricks of shame, inequity, and what's wrong with me? Her expectations of me exposed me to a land of opportunities found only in books where fairy tales exist and those that were asleep there were awakened by a kiss. She became the Peter Pan to 2 lost boys, giving us access to Neverland. In this land where I had never been, all those that were here were expected to succeed. They were expected in high school to take honors and AP classes that I knew nothing about. One of the proudest moments of my life happened during freshman orientation. I was walking down the hallway with my mom when a welcoming tone of normalcy reached out to me like a slick arm stretch at the movies and said, "Hi, I'm your freshman English 9 teacher." In one split second, the eloquence of Malcolm, the bravery of Rosa, the championing of the boys courageously spoke, "No, ma'am, I have honors." After being on this earth for 14 years, it was in that English honors class that I first learned about the Holocaust through our summer book reading night by Elie Wiesel. All I had ever known about was the enslavement of Africans, but had no clue that darkness had descended upon a face of people whose skin complexion was the very opposite of the book's name. This blew my mind as the winds of equity began to thrust me into competitive GPAs of those of my white peers because honors and AP courses gave you a half to a whole grade point. Could this be the reason why brown faces perform so poorly? Because the bandwidth carrying our information was on dial-up speed, while fibers of interconnected networks sped up the advancement of those privy to a system that supported them and not those that looked like me. The expectations of my teacher had me in class asking Ashley Woolard for homemade deer jerky because it was hunting season. I hope y'all know that black people don't hunt. That's diversity. We don't hunt. On a serious note, I began to walk the trail of tears paved by my ancestors, just to be draped in cords that used to shackle them, but now loosed me to pursue the dreams of a king. In 8th grade, I fell in love with math. And 20 years later, I find myself teaching in the same grade and subject where one teacher's expectations of me changed the course of my life. Thank you, Mrs. Simmons. Today, I want to just briefly talk about expectations and the decisions we make based upon those expectations. But before I talk about that, what is expectation? Expectation is a strong belief that something will happen or be the case, usually in the future. And so what happened to me is that I just gave you a brief synopsis of my educational journey through spoken word. And growing up in the small town of Belhaven, North Carolina, located in the eastern part of our state, there wasn't a lot of expectation for me as a black boy. It wasn't until I got into 8th grade where Mrs. Simmons had a different expectation for me. And she made a decision based off of that expectation. She basically said, "You can do Algebra 1. That's what she said. And so she took me out of an 8th grade math class and put me into a Math 1 class, an Algebra 1 class at the time, which would be considered Math 1 now. And what happened is that my life totally changed. Today, I stand off of that decision she made concerning me. I think that's powerful, not because I'm saying it, because it's my reality. I am standing based off of the decision she made concerning me. And so as leaders in this room, I have a question for you. Click too far. What have you decided? What have you decided about your students, your teachers? What have you decided about your staff? What have you decided about your community, your district? What have you decided? Because those that are under you, we stand based on the decisions that you have decided about us. And in my 20 years of being out of that class and in my 11 years of teaching, I have come along and learned many truths. But one truth stands above many of those truths, and that truth is expectations for all lift the expectation of all. That as we expect more, we get more. That truth governs my classroom. That truth is the reason why I believe I've had success in the classroom. And so as leaders, as you're making decisions, as you're moving and you're reflecting about this year, understand that we teachers, we students, we everybody that are following you, making you not look like the lone nut that Dr. Wilcox said, that we stand based off of the decision that you make about us. Because expectations for all lift the expectation of all. Thank you.
So we're blessed to have lots of great teachers. James, come back here.
Yes.
But one thing that I think great teachers don't see often is when they do great things, they don't necessarily see the appreciation that we have for them. The other thing that makes me nervous or a little worried about our society is we tend to reward things that are insignificant. So we give standing ovations to sports stars when the people that really deserve standing ovations are standing next to me. Would you join me in thanking our...
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you.